All right, so again, shalom and salam to our family. It's your brother Lidj, Yefdi, Yohannis, wolde, Immanuel, RastafariRenaissance.com here, and just expounding on a little bit more about the points that were brought forward from and I Wyndham, my brother, a teacher, a Rebbe Yad Vashem, Rasi Adinos Teferi, Line of Judah Society, Rastafari Groundation. And hopefully we can expound a little bit more on this topic, along with many others coming forward. I remember just some years ago, maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, speaking on many of these subjects. And we're speaking specifically about the divisions amongst Israel and those who say they are of Israel but not of Israel, scripturally speaking, from spirituality, mindset, and actions as well. And it really kind of shows what's been being brought forward from many of the certain camps, so to speak, of those who, of course, adhere to Israelite doctrine, Hebrew theology, philosophy, however you want to classify it. It just seems that there are just so many factions in between. And of course we know that there are many mansions, in the Father's house from Scripture, and much of the saying continues. But, I can't help but notice so much that has come out, especially lately, and the continued, attacks, on ones such as a Bob Marley, or a Peter Tosh, or even lately Brother Junior Reed. So many of the others who have been actually pushing forward for certain progress and certain themes among African peoples and black people, and so on and so forth. The ethnic Hebrew Israelites, from what we know, it's just I can't help but notice that, we seem to be living in, it just, and living out outwardly these times of the judges, and in the very last book, on the very last verse, one should really search this out. It says, "And in that time, there was no king in Israel, and every man did as he saw fit, and it through his own heart." And it clearly, just shows, the signs of the times in which we live in, and, just where many people's mindsets are, even if they come to, this understanding and this realization that, they do have not only genetic and ethnic links to the people of the scriptures, but they seem to be, just again, just living out, not vicariously, but truly, in their own ways, shape, form, and fashion. These themes, these topics, these scenarios of what Israel had gone through in the past, and it just shows so much. And I really think that another study, and even this may be another topic, definitely for another compilation and product to come forward, just for ones to keep and study and go over and really assess from a certain standpoint, just where Israel is at this point now. So we'll definitely look to put together some more works, literature-wise, especially speaking on the book of Judges. It was so much that went on in that time, from the time of the Exodus up into the children of Israel coming into the land of Canaan, and even throughout traversing through the land of Canaan all the way up until the many captivities and also victories that Israel had from a certain time, all pending up into the upliftment and the establishment, of the Davidic monarchy. So, and again, the book of Judges shows that, there was no king in Israel physically at that point. Of course, again, I go back to my earlier point mentioning about what, the brother Wyndham Ross Dinos had spoke about just a few years ago, and I'll have to find that clip again. Hopefully I can insert it here in this video. Well, the brother spoke on, there's really, even within all the mansions, there's three specific groups among Israelites. You have the monarchists, and you also have the extremists, and you have more so the, I guess you could say, liberalists, or it's almost to the point to where it's really like this. Don't want to say political, because even as Rastafari, we have to come to the realization that there's still a matter of politicking that has to go on even throughout Israel. But there's a certain fact and faction of ones and ones who adhere to certain principles and doctrines more than the other. That's just the reality of this. Not so much speaking to ones on the outside, because they're even just as lost as many others here. They would, of course, scrutinize and, of course, mock and scorn ones who adhere to certain themes as this. But the majority, and I would say at least 75 to 80% of those type of people don't even have a community in which they're participating in collectively, and definitely not progressively. So we won't even touch that type of point, because at the end of the day, at least these people at least have something to hold on to, and they have something that they can actually work with amongst other people, as a collective unit, though it may be flawed in so many ways, shape, form, and fashions, and or the ways that people are actually doing things. It still shows that they have a commitment to actually pursuing something of value, and that is a thriving community at some point. So I do commend a lot of the brothers and the sisters as well, who have come to the realization and have at least started the process of studying their own history, studying their culture, studying what has happened to them in the past, what has happened to their lineage, and where they would like to go in the future. So that's definitely a commendable step for anyone, because just realizing that what we are doing here in this time is not working. So that's that's enough to give credit where credit is due in itself, because some feel like there's nothing wrong with what we are doing here in this North Country, here in the West. So I definitely commend many of the brothers and sisters for that. But it definitely shows that we're living in a certain period of time, and even as the Book of Judges, or the Shophtim, the Mesafint, it really shows that we have come to this certain period of degradation. And it's clear because it shows, every day, and ones have to be completely blind spiritually and physically to even acknowledge the fact that it's not going on. But again, just to, drive home that point that the brother was speaking on, you have three specific groups: monarchists, extremists, and I guess you would say liberalists to a certain extent, just for a lack, of classification or categorization of the word. But it really shows the same even amongst Israel of old, where you had the factions of the Pharisees, Sadducees, and the Essenes. The Essenes, of course, which hardly ever gets mentioned, even in certain theological sects and corners of certain educational platforms. And the Essenes, of course, adheres much to the monarchist themes and doctrine of much of what Hebrew doctrine brings forward, and one that we intend to study a lot more, because it really adheres to what Rastafari really had brought forward as Israelites, and of course self-proclaimed and self-reasserted and reclamated, to this type of people. But it really just brings out so much in itself that just begs the point and needs more study and assessment, because it really just gives you a sense of where we are at this point and where we should be going, because everything that just seems to be happening at this point now just seems to be leading up to a definite apex and a turning point in this time, especially. And of course the history will judge and it will be shown, but it really shows so much that has gone on, and what should be coming forward. And just seeing the strides amongst certain groups, especially among Rastafari, as many have already repatriated to certain places and specific corners of the continent of Africa. Not only in Ethiopia, though there is a huge number of ones and ones living there. From, of course, different parts of the world, not only Jamaica and the Caribbean, but of course there's a huge number of ones from the UK as well. Some with ties to the Caribbean. Some of course from Latin America, and a definite number of ones and ones even from other parts of Africa that have, of course, joined up in numbers with Rastafari. And this is something that I have witnessed for myself. I've seen it with my own two eyes. So, and of course there are more places like Ghana, South Africa, even amongst Zimbabwe. The influence, has grown so much, just of Rastafari itself. So, even amongst most of the Pan-African groups and corners of so much of these educational and, quote-unquote progressive movements, Rastafari have been, definitely a spearhead for all of these movements, from long time. So, I mean, even amongst those of the 1800s and the early 1900s on up to this point, Rastafari and certain and even sometimes different perspectives have still been, a steadfast upholding, pivot in the most of these movements. And we definitely seek to continue in that and strive more for its progression. And we'll definitely pick this up in the next video, because there's just a lot more that I really want to bring out on this point, because it really kind of shows, where Israel had been. It still seems like much of the same things, are going on. So, as always, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So we'll pick this up just in the next video, just as I'm bringing, forward more of these topics and themes and subjects. And, we'll compilate them. Hopefully we'll have more visuals for the eye. So just pick this up in the next video. Shalom, shalom.